used by not only Pennsylvania, but almost all of the northern states to battle the draconian fugitive slave laws. And Mark mentioned the Pennsylvania Personal Liberty Law that was passed in 1845, just a few years after the Pritt decision. I think it's interesting to see what the University of Pittsburgh wrote about this law. It said, this law provided sanctions for purchasing or removing free blacks with the intention of reducing them to slaves, prohibited state officials from accepting jurisdiction over cases arising under the Federal Fugitive Slave Act of 1793, provided penalties for claimants seizing slaves in a violent, tumultuous, and unreasonable manner. Other northern states actually followed Pennsylvania's lead, especially after the passage of the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, which to me is one of the most draconian laws ever passed by Congress. It stripped away all right of due process for a black person accused of being a fugitive. They couldn't even testify in their own defense. Michigan, for instance, required jury trials for anybody accused of being a fugitive, which actually was in direct contradiction to the Supreme Court opinion. They also refused to allow fugitive slave catchers or federal marshals to use their jails to hold fugitive slaves. Massachusetts took the step, which is not unlike what we have here in these SB 999. They actually took the step of making any cooperation with federal fugitive slave catching by a state official an impeachable offense. In other words, if you were a state judge and served on a slave commission or served as a slave commissioner, you could be impeached, removed from office, and barred from ever holding a state position again. These measures were as bold as they were effective. And I think they're very similar to what we see today. There's a lot of parallel between indefinite detention and fugitive slave rendition. Now, some people might say, Mike, you're being a little bit hyperbolic. You're exaggerating a bit. We're never going to see this type of indefinite detention in the United States. But as Mark mentioned, just 75 years ago, more than 120,000 Japanese Americans watched World War II from behind barbed wire fences. You put together the right amount of fear, along with the right policies, and virtually anything is possible. Now, we can't do anything about the fear, but we can ensure that policies are in place to protect the most vulnerable of American citizens. You can't stop federal kidnapping. There's nothing Pennsylvania can do to stop the federal government from doing what it wants to do, but you can refuse to aid and abet the federal government. It sends a powerful message to Washington, D.C. It sends a powerful message to the states, and it says that the state of Pennsylvania supports civil liberties, supports the Constitution, and supports due process. With that in mind, I urge you all to support and pass SB 999.